Welcome to At the Heart of Good and Evil. Today, let's dive into the true nature of evil, not just the cartoonish villain, but the deeper, philosophical meaning of moral evil. Claire, why do you think people often confuse evil with mere unpleasantness or difference?
That's a key question, Julian. Psychologists note that humans tend to label anything that threatens their comfort or norms as evil. For example, cultural practices that differ from our own can be viewed with suspicion. But moral evil is much more than personal dislike. It's about actions or intentions that violate deeply held ethical standards.
That distinction is crucial. It's as if, when confronted with evil, our rational thinking gets foggy. We respond emotionally, making it hard to analyze the concept objectively. Would you say this emotional charge distorts our moral compass?
Absolutely. Neuroscientific studies show that moral decisions activate both logical and emotional brain regions. When fear or anger dominates, people are more likely to make snap judgments, sometimes mislabeling something as evil simply because it feels threatening or unfamiliar.
So, before we can even define evil philosophically, we must untangle these emotional reactions from genuine moral reasoning. Let's move to how history and stories shape our understanding of evil. Throughout history, evil is often depicted as a lurking monster, a dragon in a cave, for instance. Claire, how do these myths influence our willingness to confront the concept of evil head-on?
These analogies serve as mental shortcuts. By personifying evil as a dragon or demon, we externalize it, making it easier to avoid self-examination. But philosophers like Carl Jung argue that the dragon is really an archetype, a symbol for the darkness within ourselves that we fear to face.
So, when we avoid exploring what evil truly is, it's like fearing to wake the sleeping dragon. Instead of seeking understanding, we let the myth dictate our responses. Are there risks in letting these stories define our moral boundaries?
Definitely. Relying on myths can lead to moral stagnation. If evil is always out there, we ignore the subtle forms it takes in everyday life, like indifference or complicity. Anthropologist Mary Douglas, for example, showed how societies create taboos to draw sharp lines between good and evil, often reinforcing conformity rather than genuine reflection.
That echoes how we sometimes use stories to hide from uncomfortable truths. Let's transition to the idea that evil is simply the opposite of good. Is it really that simple? Many people assume that evil is just the negative of good, like a mathematical minus. Claire, why is this binary view problematic when applied to real moral situations?
Because morality isn't just arithmetic. Take anger, for instance. In ancient Greece, anger was often seen as a vice, but in times of war, it could be a necessary force for survival. This shows that emotions themselves aren't inherently good or evil. Their moral status depends on context.
That's a compelling example. So, while emotions like anger or fear can be destructive, they can also serve positive purposes, depending on circumstances. But you argue that good and evil themselves aren't relative in this way?
Exactly. Philosophers distinguish between situational ethics and absolute moral values. While our feelings and actions may shift based on context, the ideals of good and evil, what some call moral absolutes, are imagined as eternal pillars that remain constant, regardless of human perspective.
This brings us to a deeper question. Are we simply projecting our own experiences onto universal values? Or do good and evil exist independently of us? Let's explore that next. Now, Claire, there's a debate. Is humanity the measure of all things, or are we part of a greater chain of values? What does it mean if good and evil are truly absolute, existing beyond us?
If good and evil are absolute, they function like laws of nature, unchanging and universal, regardless of personal or cultural opinion. This view is supported by thinkers like Plato, who argued for the existence of ideal forms, including pure goodness and evil.
That's a profound shift. If evil is an eternal contrast, not just a list of forbidden acts, then our choices, big or small, carry a weight that transcends individual experience. How does this perspective impact real-world moral dilemmas, like justice or punishment?
It demands humility. Take Victor Hugo's The Last Day of a Condemned Man. The lack of context about the crime forces us to confront the morality of punishment itself, rather than judging the individual. When we view good and evil as absolutes, we're compelled to look beyond our narrow interests toward the broader impact of our actions.
So ultimately, Evil isn't just a monster in the shadows. It's a constant reminder that our moral decisions matter on a universal scale. Thank you, Claire, for this illuminating discussion.